Last couple of years, we've had pretty good question and answer sessions, so I figured I'd do kind of the same thing today. Start out with questions and answers, then go over some basic stuff. Had a lot of people ask online if we could cover first-time startups on methanol systems, and then also proper storage in between runs and storage times as far as how long you can store it without flushing and so forth. So we'll cover those things as well. Anybody have any methanol specific questions as far as starting off with anything before we go into the regular spiel? Okay, cool. Figure everybody's kind of getting the gist of what's going on. Biggest thing with methanol, ethanol, E85, any of it, is your set times as far as park between shows. I like to tell guys run every 2 weeks, try and flush it. That's what I've done with mine for 30 years. I normally don't even flush mine in the off season, and unfortunately there's not much of an off season anymore to even worry about. But for those that want to, the primary setup, whether you're running 2-barrel, 4-barrel, with haulage on most of them, I tell guys, if you're going to drain it, don't just shut the fuel pump off and run it out and think you drained it, because especially if it's 4-barrel, the back bowl is going to be full almost every time, even on 4-quarter idle. Pull your bottom, pick a bottom screw in the bowl, front and back, or if you're running 4412, just front, pull your bottom screw and let it drain. Then, as far as the flushing goes, you can flush it with even basic gasoline, just 87 octane, hot gas, whatever. Doesn't need to be anything special. But just take a line off the tank, stick it in a tank of gas, and run fuel through your line until you'll see like your methanol will be clear or blue. Your gas will probably be yellow. So just run it through until it changes colors. Hook it back up to your carb, pump a little bit into the carb, and then what everybody forgets is when you're flushing your system and you pump fuel back into your carb, work your accelerator pumps. Like push each of them a couple times, make sure that you're actually seeing gasoline in your squirters. The little nozzles underneath will get stuck. They're just little stoppers is all they are, but they'll get stuck. But the storage is nowhere near as complicated as everybody wants to make it out to be. Like I said, by far the simplest thing is just to run it every couple of weeks. But if you do pump it out, drain the bowls, and then fill it back up, and then work your squirters. That covered that part fairly clearly. Most of the time, you can start it on, like when you pump fuel into it, you can start it that way. It will run very rich. It'll just clean black smoke. On mine, when I fire it back up, I go through the same process. I pull the bolt back out, let the gas drain out of it, and then prime back up with methanol the same way and fire it. The little bit of gas that's in the squirters helps it start faster. It'll light right off, and then run it for a couple minutes and then clear out. If you just fire it with the bowls full of gas, it's pretty iffy on getting it cleaned out before the spark plugs start popping out. Any more questions on the storage side of it? Okay. Biggest topic that's come up in the last year with any fuel system that you're using an electric fuel pump for, whether it be E85, methanol, gasoline, whatever. Don't just turn your electric pump on and let it sit there and beat on the needle and seam while you're getting everything else ready and firing the car up. There's likely plenty of fuel in the bowl already. Pump it once or twice and start it, and then turn the fuel pump on. I try really hard to get everybody to always If you don't think there's any fuel in it, turn the pump on for a couple seconds and then turn it back off. Pump it, start it. The number one failure on ethanol and methanol both are guys will turn the pump on and then get preoccupied doing something else or be running through their checks and whatnot, and the pump's just sitting there beating on the needle and seat, and sometimes it will push through. You can actually fill a cylinder full of fuel. You can do the same thing on gas. The needle and seat's only going to hold so much for so long, so if you let it just sit there and beat against it, sooner or later it will push past on electric fuel pump. Now, if you're running a manual fuel pump, that's not a concern. But I wish Tony Boone was sitting here. Tony was classic. But anyway, last year at the Turkey Derby, it was I think the 80s wire class. We had a really bad driver's door headed down to the last 4 cars. Stopped the show, the driver was concerned. Jumped out to check on another driver, and then shut his system off. The car just sat there and ran for a couple seconds and died. Fuel pump sat there and ran the whole time. He was checking on the other driver and everything. He goes back, climbs in the car, and gets it. It just ran. And to find out, it had filled 2 cylinders clear full of gas, and he was just running, regular pump gas, but with electric fuel system, with electric fuel pump. So, if there's anything I can push along to anybody that is helpful, that'd probably be my first thought for today. And outside of that, the old standby of clean. You cannot clean your system enough. You cannot even clean enough. Run pre-filters, run post-filters. Probably I want to make sure I cover it. How many guys sitting here run a filter in their vent system on their tank? Hoping to see a lot more hands. The number one way to get dirt in your carburetor is to not run a filter in your vent line. When you're out on the track and you're raising hell and everything's dirty and you can't hardly see the guy next to you, your fuel system is pulling in like inches per minute of dirt. Like if you don't run a filter at the end of the season, I almost guarantee if you can reach the bottom of your fuel cell, you can scrape dirt out of the bottom of your fuel cell. They will absolutely, they are a shot back. A lot of guys don't believe it. Kansas a couple years ago, I was helping Toast, and he's like, man, I don't know what's going on. I keep getting this dirt, I keep getting this dirt. And we get to looking, and he had wrapped his vent hose and stuck it down on the floor, so if it had a rollover, it wasn't going to leak. Well, he was shot back in the dirt off the floor rather than the fuel system. His tank had debris like crazy. The vent holds so much air in to pull the fuel that he basically had a shot back. So, just another pointer. Help out with it. Make sure your whole system is filtered, not just your, not just your line, but your vent system. Keep your tanks closed up. Keep your tanks in the garage closed up. A lot of guys miss that step. Pump fuel out, leave the pump in the barrel. Quick way to get debris. Debris is not your friend. Any questions on anything so far? You guys are supposed to be a lot more helpful. Surely Joe's got a question.
Just listen.
Okay. Little bit of troubleshooting. Leave my sitting here. I'll pick on him a little bit. 2 weeks ago, Dixon show. Had carburetors constantly dripping, and I will admit I didn't know why. I looked at 2-3 different times for him, helped him figure it out there. I've since then figured out, sure, I was doing what I was doing, but the metering block are set up with an air bleed, just like all the rest of the carburetor. Everything is an air bleed. And I believe when we get to take it apart, what we're actually going to find is the bleeds in the top of the fuel system that are supposed to make it stop pulling fuel when it goes back to the idle circuits are plugged up. So I think once it pulls its first fuel, it just constantly keeps dripping because it basically a siphon, it builds a siphon at that point. And it's just got just enough debris in there that there's nothing to break that siphon. So I would say That's what we're on mine. Kind of like the old man's race car was plugging up to the top. With the air filter issues back in the day, well, I think yours is down in the actual metering system, where the top tier system runs up there, please. Instead of top tier plugged up, and maybe not even sort of plugged up. It's just maybe not big enough. You know, you might be pulling just enough fuel that those holes need to get enlarged a little bit. I think that one was originally a quick fuel, so maybe when it was put, maybe when it was built originally, that hole was never enlarged from, you know, their original gas setup when they converted that metering block to methanol. Because that is one of the steps in enlarging everything that works. Good chance that that's it. The other big thing, and again, this is everything across the board, no matter what fuels are running. The carburetors really like to be level. Derby cars don't spend a lot of time level. The more classes change, you know, guys, you know, there's classes that allow an engine protector but don't allow transmission protector. So your engine and transmission sits in the car like this. So your carburetor is automatically sitting in the car like this. Well, it doesn't, you know, especially, you know, Holly doesn't have to lean back very far before your fuel level here is higher than your nozzle here. So there again, this is drip, 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 dripping inside. There's a 7-degree angle fix for that now. I know NLR carries, I'm not sure who else has. But whether it's 2 or 4 barrel, you can get an adapter to tip the carburetor back level. I run it on all of my stuff. Even my cars that aren't supposed to come up in the front, I like to start the carburetor out leaning down a little bit. That way if it does come up, it either levels out or tilts to 7, not 15 or 20, because the farther back it tilts, the more it's going to try to flood over fuel. And they'll only burn so much fuel. Anybody else have any questions? Just like, questions are good. Mark's going to be super happy because he told me to make it fast so we can play catch up, so he's going to be happy. If you guys have anything come up that you want to ask, hit me up on Messenger anytime you want, Facebook Messenger, answer any questions. You don't have to be a customer to hit me up. I answer questions all day, every day, people that I've never even seen before, let alone sold anything to. So always glad to help. I mean, by all means, feel free to buy something. If you don't, I'm still there if you need me. Thanks, guys.